Okay, so we are up to Parshas Terumah, Baruch Hashem. And this week's Parsha, Parshas Terumah, is all about building the Mishkan, collecting for the Mishkan, giving to the Mishkan, and building the Mishkan. And it's really a mashal. The Mishkan's a real thing. It's an actual structure. And this actually happened. And it's also a metaphor, an imagery, an expression, a representation of our lives, of how we build our lives, of the different things that we place in our lives, all the kelim, the vessels in the Mishkan, are different aspects of the vessels that we build and that we place in our lives. The structure of the Mishkan, the building itself, is the territory and the building of our lives. And how we give, what we give, how we take and what we take. All of this, all the details, every single detail, down to the measurement and the color and the fabric and the texture and every single aspect of what is going on in the building of the Mishkan contains secrets and worlds of meaning for us to glean from, for how to build the sanctuary, the Mishkan, the sanctuary, the dwelling place for Hashem in our lives. And therefore it's of the utmost importance to understand that the entire purpose of the Mishkan is for one thing. V'asuli Mishkan, make for me a Mishkan, v'shachanti b'socham, and then I can dwell among you. Famously, we know the diuk, the observation that it doesn't say v'shachanti b'socha in it, but b'socham in you. Because it's already telling us that the building of the Mishkan is not only about a physical structure outside of yourself, but it's that building your lives, each and every individual life, is for one ultimate purpose: to turn your life into a dwelling place for Hashem's presence. And that's what we're all trying to do in everything in our lives. And all the Parshios until now, all through Parshas, the creation of the world, and through the stories of the individuals, of Noach, of Avram, Yitzchak, Yakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah, the Shvatim, Yosef Atzadik, and the brothers, and all the stories, and then going into the slavery in Mitzrayim, and Yetzias Mitzrayim, everything is really leading to the possibility of the Jewish people forging a relationship with Hashem, and being able to turn their lives into the vessel for Hashem to be able to reveal himself into this world. And so in a sense, this Parsha, building the Mishkan, which in a sense is a precursor to building the Beis HaMikdash, is really the arrival. In a sense, we've arrived at the purpose, which is v'asuli mikdash, build and make yourselves into a mikdash, v'shachanti b'socham, and then I can dwell in your midst. So what rests at the center, at the heart of this Mishkan, of this structure, and as I've been saying, of our lives? So it's pretty incredible. We have different layers. We have all these different outer parts of the Mishkan, and then going more inside, and eventually we get to the innermost point, known as the Kodesh HaKodashim, the Holy of Holies. And then we go further inside in the Holy of Holies, in the Kodesh HaKodashim, and we arrive at the Aron Kodesh. And inside the Aron Kodesh is the Luchos. And on top of the Aron Kodesh is what the Torah tells us is called kruvim. 2 kruvim. It's not clear what kruvim are. There's some sort of sculpted figure. 2 kruvim. Pneim ish el achiv, one facing another. And they they're built upon the Aron. These kruvim are the holiest spot, holiest location in the entirety of the world. They're in the Mishkan, in the Kodesh HaKodashim, at the Aron. and they're on top of it. And how do I know that? That this is the center point? Because the next pasuk, right after it tells us to form these kruvim and to put the kruvim on the aron, which goes in the Kodesh HaKodashim, the Torah then says, "V'no adati l'cha sham," and I will make myself known to you from there. I will meet you there. V'no adati l'cha sham, like a moed. A moed is a meeting point, like the moadim are meetings between us and Hashem. V'no adati, I will meet you there. V'dibarti itcha, and I will speak to you me'ala kapores, from on top of the kapores, mi bein shnei akruvim, from in between these two kruvim, asher al aron ha'edos, that is on top of the aron, the ark, ha'edos of testimony. Testimony to what? Testimony of my relationship to you. So where does Hashem speak to us from? The Torah says Hashem's telling us, I'm going to speak to you from the space between these two kruvim. So now, of course, the question is, if all of the Mishkan is an expression for us to understand how to build our lives, to create our lives into a place where the Shekhinah can rest, and therefore, if we can identify this place within the Mishkan, that this is the place Hashem speaks to us from, what does this mean in our lives? What does it mean that Hashem speaks to us, mi bein shnei akruvim? What is the place of the kruvim? Where is Hashem speaking to us from? Now, of course, to be clear, Hashem is speaking to us from everywhere. That's why the Torah describes the creation of the world. What is the verb? What action does Hashem use to create the world? So, if you look back in Parshas, Vayomer Elokim, and Hashem said, Ba'asara ma'amaros nivra ha'olam, the world is created with 10 utterances. Hashem's speech creates the world. Why? There's many deep explanations. One explanation is because Hashem created the world through speech, because He's speaking to us. Hashem is talking to us from the entirety of the world. Is Hashem talking to us? Everything we encounter, everything we see, everything we experience, everything going on in our lives is Hashem speaking to us. But what the Torah is telling us here is that there's something specific about the kruvim that is, in a sense, an extra level, a more intensified, more direct, more intimate experience of Hashem speaking to us. And what is that? So Rashi tells us, what are the kruvim? The kruvim, Rashi says, quoting an opinion in the Gemara, Rashi says, kruvim dimus partsof tinok lahem. The kruvim were the face. What did the kruvim look like? There were these two sculptures. What did they look like? They looked like young children, little children, very, very young children. And what I think the Torah is telling us, by telling us that Hashem speaks to us from the kruvim more than anywhere else, is that Hashem is telling us where you can find me, where you can find me the most. Where is the primary place to look, to connect, and to hear me speaking to you? What is the holiest place in the world, the Kodesh HaKodashim, is your children. If a person is zocha to have children, it's in their children. The whole world is like the outside part of the Mishkan. And our neighborhood, where we live, our shul maybe, our community, this is like going deeper into the Mishkan. And then our personal home, within the walls of our house, that is the Kodesh HaKodashim. That is the holiest space in the world. It's actually very interesting. Rav Hirsch and Rav Soloveitchik both comment on this. Shamshin Rav Hirsch writes about how other religions, lahavdil, they beautify their places of worship, church, let's say, or elsewhere, so immensely, so elaborately. Our shuls are beautiful, but nothing like what they do there. And if Hirsch explains, it's because we don't consider the shul the holiest place in the world. Our homes are the holiest places in the world. The home is the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Our community, our shul, that might be the Kodesh, but our home is the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Now, within the Kodesh HaKadoshim, there are still levels. There's the place of the Kodesh HaKadoshim, but then there's the Aron. When we have a home that's built on Torah, on knowing Torah, on being in love with Torah, having a reverence and an awe for Torah, the luchos that are in the Aron Kodesh, that's the center of the Kodesh HaKadoshim. It's the center of the home. And then, the holiest place from which Hashem speaks to us directly is the kruvim, the faces of our children. It's our kids. Is the holiest place in our whole world, in our whole lives. And this is very hard, I think, for a lot of people. It's very hard to really connect our holiness, our avoda. We think of raising our children, parenting. Parenting is very hard, very challenging, very stressful. And we think of it as a responsibility. But we don't necessarily think of that as our holiness. We go to a shiur, we do some chesed, we go to something in the community, we feel inspired. How often do we feel inspired raising our children? Typically not. I think one of the things that make it the most difficult to relate to raising children as something holy, and not just something holy, but the holiest thing. And one of the reasons in general why parenting children is so difficult is because we like to feel a sense of control. As humans, we like to feel a sense of control, that we're in control of what we're doing, of what's going on around us. And especially if it's something that we have a responsibility over. If there's something I don't have responsibility over, I don't feel that I need to have control. I don't feel frustrated that I can't control the weather. I might not like it that it's cold or rainy or whatever's going on, but I don't have a sense of frustration that I can't control the weather. It doesn't get me angry. I don't get stressed that I can't control the weather. But something that I'm tasked with, that I have choice, that I have responsibility, that I'm engaged with, that I'm actually I'm changing something, I'm doing something. Especially there, the more control, the more responsibility we have, naturally, the more we want to feel a sense of control. In our jobs, we want to feel a sense of control. In in our health, we want to feel a sense of control, and exercising, and the food we eat, whatever it might be. The more we have choice in something, the more that we want to feel in control. So raising kids is a very difficult combination if you stop and think about it. Because on the one hand, it's something that we have the most responsibility in. We have the most choice, meaning we're tasked with it. We're supposed to be working on it. It's not like the weather, it's just out there, it's happening. We are responsible. And yet, it's also the thing, maybe the thing in our lives that we have, in a sense, the least control over. When our kid is upset about something, our kid's nature, this kid is this way and this kid is that way, and this kid wants one thing and another wants another thing, and they're fighting, and this one's upset, whatever's going on. We have so little control. That combination is very challenging. that on the one hand we have a lot of responsibility, and on the other hand we have very little control. Most things in our lives are usually more one way or the other. Either we have a lot of responsibility and we have more control, or we have almost no responsibility and almost no control. But to have a lot of responsibility and very little control, and so much investment in the outcome, we care so much, of course, about the outcome. Very, very challenging. And because of how challenging it is, I think a lot of people fall into one of two things because of that lack of control. They fall into one of two places or responses that I think the Mishkan speaks to. Not necessarily in this week's Parsha, but the Inyan and the Parsha in general of the Mishkan, and by extension the Beis HaMikdash, really speak to. The first response that a lot of people have to not having control where we want to have control over our kruvim, our children, is to try to take more control. What does it look like to try and take more control? It's to get angry, to get stressed, to try to become controlling, to insert ourselves even more. We try to take control, we get angry. Anger is likened by Chazal to a fire. When a person gets angry, it's like lighting a fire. It's an eish. And what does the Torah tell us? That a person has to be very careful not to bring a foreign fire into the Beis HaMikdash, certainly into the Kodesh HaKodashim. An eish zara is something that's not allowed into the Beis HaMikdash. You know, Rav Wolbe has such an interesting line in his beautiful sefer, Zriya Ubinyan, which I'll get back to in a minute. He says, it's kind of striking, he says, this is in the English translation, Rav Wolbe writes, there's something distasteful about the statement, quote, I have children, end quote. Children don't belong to us. They're not our property. Hashem gave us our children as trusts, and we must guard them. So some people, because of the lack of control, they try to have their children, to have more control. And that's what the Torah warns us against, not bringing an eish zara into the Kodesh. The other response is the polar opposite. When we don't have control over something, when it's difficult for us, what do? We check out. We neglect our responsibilities. Again, the combination that's so challenging is I have the responsibility, but I don't have control. So what do some people do? I have responsibility, let me take more control. Other people, I don't have control, so let me neglect my responsibility. And this is what the Torah also comes to tell us, that a person has an obligation to visit the Beis HaMikdash multiple times a year. And a person cannot come empty-handed. And every person has a responsibility in Aliyah L'Regel. We cannot run away from the Beis HaMikdash. We have to be involved. We have to somehow hold this very challenging duality of responsibility without control. And this, we don't have time to really go through the whole thing, but this is really what Rav Wolbe's sefer on chinuch, on parenting, is all about. It's a very nice English translation. It's called Planting and Building, Raising a Jewish Child, by Rav Shlomo Wolbe, spelled Wolbe. And it's called Planting and Building because that's his whole idea. On the one hand, we need to be involved. We have responsibility. That's the building. On the other hand, we can't just build a child. That's not how it works. We plant the seeds because we don't totally have control over how they grow, but we plant the seeds. And so this week's Parsha is reminding us that in our lives, the holiest place is our home. And within our home, the holiest place is the place where we have the combination of Torah, the Aron Kodesh, the Luchos and the Aron, and Hashem speaking to us through our children. That's where we meet Hashem. That's where our avoda kedosha is, our holy work. And to remember that in doing that work, we have responsibility and we don't fully have control. And we try to the very best of our ability, nobody's perfect, but we try to the best of our ability to make sure that we visit the Beis HaMikdash, that we go all the time. This is the place we're supposed to be. And yet, we don't bring a foreign fire into that place, but rather we treat it with sanctity, with holiness, with poise, with calm. Of course, never perfectly, never all the time, but to the best of our abilities. Hashem should help all of us to be able to see this holiest place in the world, in our lives, and to cherish it and treasure it with everything that we have. Have a great day. Have a good Shabbos.